Good morning. Welcome to Coffee and Connect. I have a sleepy Brandy here. You can't see her. She's giving me the evil eye. And Ben, I don't know what Ben's doing. He's doing something weird over there. So I have this head massager thing that like, I don't know if I'm using it right because it feels weird to me and I kind of think it's like a hair pick, but you know, whatever. The cats are extremely fascinated with it. So I try to pet them with it, but they like, they don't like. I wish you could see Ben. Ben, you want some scratches? No. Okay, so this is the kind of day it's gonna be. That's the weird thing that Ben was looking at. So again, welcome to Coffee and Connect. I don't know if that's really a safe cat toy, but hey, they're going on 4, I think, so they've lived this long without, really injuring themselves on whatever random stuff they eat. So today, what I have for you is definitely cats trying to figure out how this head scratcher thing works. Brandy's on a mission to kill it. But I wanted to do an Astro-Tarot kind of combination because I just love astrology. And there's a lot of planetary stuff going on that I'm not sure if you guys are tracking or not. And it's really, you want to sit with this? Can I pet you with this? Oh yeah. Does that feel good? Does that feel good? See, Ben, it's not so bad. It's kind of weirding her out. Can I scratch your butt? No butt scratches. Okay. Sorry. Okay, so I love astrology. There's a lot of astrological stuff going on. The thing that I want to do the reading around is the changing of the nodes. So right now, the North Node is in Cancer, the South Node is in Capricorn. And on May 5th, the nodes will change to Gemini and Sagittarius. So the North Node is going to be in Gemini, South Node is going to be in Sagittarius. And the nodes are always at opposing signs. So Cancer and Capricorn are astrological opposites. Gemini and Sagittarius are astrological opposites. And these nodes are the nodes of the moon. And so they're lunar nodes. So I will be pulling cards for you from the Moonology deck. I pulled one card for North Node, one card for South Node. The North Node is in Gemini and the South Node is in Sagittarius from 5 May this year until January of 2022. So the nodes change every 18 months. So these nodes are really about karmic life lessons. So this is kind of big stuff that's coming up. So the North Node is our future karma. So North Node in Gemini is our future karma as far as like what we need to lean into, move into. And the South Node is our unresolved karma. And so that's the things that we're kind of, when I think of unresolved stuff, I think of the past. And so, we're always kind of told like, let go of the past, move on from the past, blah, blah, blah. And so with the North Node, that's the direction we're being invited to move towards. So more of those Gemini traits. And South Node, we're being invited to kind of let go of some of those Sagittarius traits. Not let go of them as in like release or purge, but kind of like put it on the shelf and don't make it the focus anymore as it might have been in our lives. So the North Node is like new, unfamiliar, uncharted territory. It can bring up a lot of anxiety for people because especially right now, like we want certainty. We want to know like when are things reopening? When are we going to go back to work? When can I pay my mortgage? When can I pay my bills? So, this North Node stuff moving into this new uncharted territory can be kind of scary. And so you might find yourself, as we talk about like the qualities of each sign, you might find yourself kind of wanting to stay in that south node energy of Sagittarius because it feels more certain, it feels like what you know, it feels more comfortable, and that's totally okay. You could do whatever you want to do, but the point of embracing where the north node is inviting us to go is for the purpose of healing that unresolved karma that's associated with our south node. So healing comes from really kind of moving towards that north node, learning these new things so that we can apply them to our past unresolved karma for the purposes of healing. As far as what Gemini and Sagittarius kind of represent, if you're not familiar, if you're not a Gemini or a Sagittarius, if you don't know any Geminis or Sagittariuses, or you're just new to astrology and you don't know what the hell I'm talking about, you are in luck, because I'm going to tell you. The way that I think of Gemini and Sagittarius as a kind of balance as these opposing signs is that Gemini is the curious student and Sagittarius is like the wise scholar. And so with Gemini, there's a little bit more of kind of this logic, you know, like, and some of the examples I'll give you, it'll make a little bit more sense. Kind of wanting to learn new things from the perspective of like logic. And this Sagittarius is like the wise scholar that's like, well, you know, sometimes you kind of have to lean into your own knowing and your own spirituality. And that's where wisdom comes from. Like wisdom comes from within, you know, we can't learn everything from books, you know, and so there's this balance, right? That, you know, with Gemini, we've got the curiosity of the explorer, but with Sagittarius, there's this very abstract, big picture perspective of like wisdom beyond logic. But, you know, the thing is that when we think we know things, we kind of lose our curiosity. We don't seek out more information. Like when we're a scholar, like when we are a master of the field that we're in, there's this kind of ego mindset that like, I know I'm a master of this, I don't need to learn any more about it. And we lose that curiosity to kind of stay on top of that information. So some other examples of like, Gemini is like being very facts based, like wanting to know the facts about something. And the Sagittarius is very much about knowledge, you know, so the Gemini is like, okay, what are the facts in this situation? How have the facts changed? And, you know, Sagittarius in our south node says, well, like we already know what we need to know. And that Gemini north node says, right, like maybe we know all we think we need to know about the economy. But the Gemini part of us that like wants to know the facts is urging us to look at like, how has the economy changed? How will the economy change? And so just because we have, you know, excessive knowledge about the old way the economy worked, the Gemini in North Node is encouraging us, like, let's not go back to the drawing board, but like, let's look at how things have changed and kind of look for facts in that area. A last example of, you know, Gemini and Sagittarius, kind of how they bounce off of each other, is that Gemini is about short distance travel and Sagittarius is about long distance travel. So if you are a Sagittarian, you probably really, really enjoy, if you're a sun, moon, or rising Sagittarian, you probably really, really enjoy world travel. You know, like you might be having a hard time with the quarantine right now because maybe your cruise was canceled or your overseas trip was canceled, or you were planning to go to Asia this summer and now you don't know if you can go, and there's like this little bit of stir craziness, or, you know, you are really anxious to get back to work so that you can earn money to save money to travel around the world. So that's very Sagittarian. Gemini is much more about short distance travel. So like just wanting to explore like the area that you're in and, you know, like local community, like maybe there's new places that you're discovering right now, especially with the quarantine. It's not a good time to travel, right? Like that your kids are in school still online, but you want to kind of get out and like explore because nothing's open. You know, there's not like things for us to do, things to distract us. So, you know, just kind of exploring like maybe local hiking trails. I know for me, like I've been doing that. you know, looking at Gemini, short distance travel, Sagittarius is long distance travel. And the North Node is where we're moving. South Node is what we're letting go of. So if you think about the last couple years, if you've been on social media, like how popular worldwide travel has become. Like there's very much been, especially with like young millennials, there's been this nomad lifestyle of like having an online business or being able to telework and like going to Bali for a week and still being able to do your job. Or like foreign exchange programs are like much more popular. When COVID-19 really started to impact globally and we had a lot of American students overseas, like there was panic about coming back to America. So in the last, you know, couple of years, like international travel has been really big. That's that South Node, Sagittarius energy. North Node, where we're going to, is really that short distance local travel, getting to know what is literally in your backyard, because right now that's kind of all we have access to. So I hope those were understandable elements of like North Node, South Node stuff. Maybe one or two last things about the changing of the North Nodes. The lunar nodes are inviting us to really work with our karma. The more we lean into the North Node in Gemini, the more that we'll be able to move into that future karma with the purposes of healing that unresolved karma in our South Node. So, you know, the changing of the North Nodes is all for the purposes of healing and rebalancing our karma. So one example, excuse me, that I can give you from the last 18 months is that, you know, the North Node has been in Cancer and the South Node has been in Capricorn. And so Capricorn rules work, structure, traditional ways of doing things, you know. So our South Node in Capricorn said this is how work goes. This is the only way that work works. This is what you have to do, blah, blah, blah. And then moving into, leaning into that North Node in Cancer. Cancer is very much about self-care, nurturing, mothering, looking at what works for what's in the best interest of the collective, like the way a mother will look at things. If she's got 3 kids, you know, she's got to balance out like what is the best for everybody, what is fair for everybody, what is loving and nurturing for everybody. And so in learning how to become more loving and nurturing, we've healed that South Node Capricorn karma to where, you know, we're looking at businesses in different ways. That in the last 2 years, we've had maternity and paternity leave changes. You know, we've had a lot of discussion about equal work for equal pay. And now, you know, even the situation that we're in where they've extended unemployment for people that cannot work because, you know, they're in industries that have been closed, like retail. A lot of, you know, food service jobs have been adjusted and cut back. And, you know, a lot of people have gotten furloughed and laid off because if there's no money coming in, you can't pay people. And so, you know, looking at that unemployment, looking at the stimulus checks, like looking at a new way for work to work has been that North Node in Cancer, healing that unresolved work karma in Capricorn that said, this is the only way it will work. This is what we have to do. This is it. You know, that North Node in Cancer has really brought a lot of change and healing to the way that, sorry, I was looking at Ben, the way that we manage work. So, say all that to just give you a little bit of an astrology lesson on, ow, oh, this kid. Ben, please don't kick me in the stomach. This kid. He's too big for my lap. I'm too small of a human. You're too big of a cat. I share all that with you to just kind of preface what the card reading is about. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that free astrology lesson. So now we will get into the card reading. I'm gonna show you 3 cards that you can choose from. I'll be doing the card reading, like I said, from the Moonology deck. And the Ben and the Osho Zen Tarot. So yeah, if you would like to pick, this is a pick a card reading. There's 3 different cards you can choose from. So card 1, 2, or 3, as always, you are welcome to watch all of the readings. You're welcome to pick more than one reading. Whatever image makes sense to you, whichever image resonates with you. If you're familiar with tarot, you can pick the card that maybe is where you want to go. If you have some tarot knowledge, yeah, so here's your choices. So if you chose the Magician, this is reading number 1. The card that I have chosen for you for the North Node is literally the North Node card. I love it. Whenever I use this deck, I never pull any of the node cards. So the North Node card says step out of your comfort zone. So, I mean, if that doesn't explain to you what the North Node is about, I don't know what does. And this symbol up here is the symbol for the North Node. If you flip it upside down, that's the symbol for the South Node. So if you pick card reading 1, I feel like you are all about getting it. Like, let's get into this North Node work. Let's step into the discomfort. And so the thing that you are being encouraged to, I want to say reevaluate, to look at as you move into your future karma, is this card for burden. So this is the 6 of Swords. And as you can see with this card, like, there is a person writing another person. And so for me, this card of burden, the focus is the carrier. And so the thing that I feel like you're being invited to look at is, what unnecessary burdens are you taking on? Because, you know, North Node, Gemini, facts. Is it factual that you are obligated to carry this person with a rooster on his head? I don't know what that's about. Are you, in fact, responsible for taking the path that someone else is directing you to go? Is it factual that this burden, this exhaustion, is beneficial to you in any way? Number 6 in numerology is very much about partnership and love. So if you are in an unbalanced relationship, you know, if you are, Gemini is about duality. If this is an internal conflict within you, you know, and seeing that there is, to me, this really feels like the person, the ego, and the soul. You know, the soul's just kind of there, like, I will quietly let you know where we're supposed to go. But the ego is like, I'm in charge. We have to go here because I'm the boss and you have to do what I say. And then the self is exhausted because, you know, they're being overrun by this ego to the point that they can't hear their soul. So if that doesn't resonate because your soul's not a rooster, I totally get that. I don't think my soul's a rooster either. But for the purposes of illustration of this, like, internal relationship, this duality, you know, with the Gemini North Node, Gemini is the twins, you're really being asked to look at the facts and see, like, what factually is for your best, highest good. Is it indeed for your best, highest good to be burdened or to take on these burdens that you have? And allow yourself, like I said, North Node is over the next 18 months, to just look at things. This is not, you know, like, the North Node starts, or the North Node shift May 5th. This isn't work that you have to do, like, on the 6th, have it completed. We have 18 months. So this is really just kind of guiding you to look at these things. Look at your obligations and burdens over the next 18 months. Just let those kind of float to the surface, knowing that it's going to push you out of your comfort zone, because that's what's for your best, highest good. And we can only change when we move, excuse me, out of our comfort zone. Oh, I scared Ban. So South Node card that I pulled for you is New Moon in Cancer. You and your loved ones are safe. And so as we focus more on the North Node, and we're releasing some things around the South Node, or really kind of letting them take the back burner, you know, this previous North Node was in Cancer, so there might have been a lot of focus on, like, family and been, no sir, get down. There might have been a lot of focus on family and nurturing, and just because that's not your primary focus right now doesn't mean that something bad is going to happen. Everything's going to be okay. The guidance for your kind of South Node card is this card for the dream. So this is, again, a number 6 card. This is a 6 of Cups. And so when we look at this card, she's really, really focused on, you know, this kind of perfect fantasy thing, this fantasy relationship, this fairy tale. But the reality is she doesn't have that. And her focus is so intense on this, which, you know, Cancers love. And we can be very idealistic. This is very, very idealistic when it comes to relationship, that, you know, some of the things you're asking to kind of put on the shelf, to reevaluate, to look for facts about is, indeed, is this the thing that we're being invited to look at in regards to this card is, you know, reevaluate this kind of fantasy, this dream that we've created. Is it so idealistic and so fantastical that, like, we can't see the good things that are happening in our lives? So are we so focused on, you know, this Prince Charming has to look like this and has to be like this, that when something comes in, we can't recognize the positive about it because we're so focused on this? So, you know, if you pulled this, or if you picked the first card reading, you're really being invited to just kind of look at those kind of idealistic parts of what you think relationship should be, and evaluate, you know, what can you put on the shelf, and like what can you let go of, like what's no longer serving you, knowing that you're like moving into, you know, reevaluating the facts of what you want in relationship. So that was the first card reading. If you chose the second card, which is this one, this is your card reading. So the card that I pulled for the North Node for you is Nothing is Yet Set in Stone. So this is a mutable moon. And so this card is very much about, like, you know, I feel like this is a very Gemini card in comparison to, you know, some of the Sagittarius things that we had talked about before. You know, Sagittarius is very much about knowledge and wisdom. We know what we know. Gemini is about, is that true? Like, can we look up some new information? Like, is it true that everything is set in stone? And so this North Node card for you is saying that nothing is set in stone. There's so many possibilities, which is just a really positive way to look at, you know, moving into that North Node, that there's new things that we're going to discover. There's new things to explore. We're really curious. So super positive. And the thing that, you know, you're being encouraged to explore is this consciousness card. And so, you know, this card to me is very much about beliefs. Like, what do we believe? What are we open to that we might not have been open to before? Like, how do we seek out what is for our best, highest good? How do we learn to distinguish old programming from who we are, our essence, our character? You know, and character can change, right? Like just like our habits, you know, like our preferences, you know, and consciousness is really just this expansive space that's inviting us to get quiet, go within, and discover, like, what is kind of floating in the ether that I've never considered before, because, you know, I'm so tied to these Sagittarian things of like knowing. And religion is a really big thing for Sagittarius, like optimism, which, you know, I'm not saying that you should become pessimistic, but if we are, you know, if we're holding on to these old ways with a really optimistic view, I think sometimes that can be almost similar to closed-mindedness, that, like, you know, I have to be really optimistic about the religion that I've chosen because I know that is the best way for me because of these things that happened to me 10 years ago. And this card is just kind of asking you as we move into this North Node of like, not all things are set in stone. Is that true still? Can we explore some other things? Like, can we explore maybe why that religion is important to us right now? Or if this optimistic view of things is really how we feel, or is it something that we've been taught to feel? So the South Node card that I pulled for you is meditate and contemplate. It's a new moon in Pisces. And when we get quiet, go within, you know, through meditation and contemplation, we can really kind of reflect back on the things that are from our South Node, like that are things that were so prevalent for us, this old way of operating, that we kind of can let go to, you know, kind of put it on the shelf, put it on the back burner, and think about, you know, are those things really the most important for us anymore? Or how do we look at them in a new way? And like, what are the new things that are starting to kind of come into, it feels like come into our auric field, really come into our space. Maybe ideas that friends are sharing with us, like new things that we're learning because we have all this time on our hands, that we can become a little bit more open to, and we can kind of sit and think about instead of focusing on this old stuff. And so the tarot card that I pulled for you is the integration card. And so this is really just about giving yourself space for the, you know, new things to come in and combine with these old beliefs, this old knowledge, because like the North Node and South Node, they very much work together like this. It's not that we have to go towards the North Node and abandon the South Node. We're being invited to move into this North Node for the purpose of healing, which is really balancing the South Node things. Like, we're being invited to be curious and learn new things to supplement and adjust and widen the wisdom and knowledge that we already have. So this integration card is it's a great card. Like, this is just a really great reading that, you know, you're being encouraged to kind of go within, get quiet for the purposes of integrating, you know, both of those sides within yourself. And if you pulled the third card, which is this one, this is your reading. So the card that I pulled for your North Node is bring love into the situation. So Gemini is all about fun. It's about communication. They love to kind of talk and like do things, and like communication is a really big connector for them. And so you're being invited with your North Node to really bring love into the situation of how you communicate now, how you communicate with others. And like, I feel like this is really strong energy for like listening, that, you know, communication is speaking and listening. And so if there are situations where you can reflect back on them and realize that you could have listened more, I feel like we could all listen more, definitely speaking from personal experience, because I'm a talker. So more of those, or less of this and like more of this. But yeah, we're just being invited to bring love into the situation, speaking with love and giving love to others by really listening to them and hearing them, definitely hearing them. And so when we bring more love in, as we're moving into more loving communication, more loving listening, that really opens us up for receptivity. And so when we look at this card, you know, her arms are up. This is really like that third eye, crown chakra, that all this stuff is kind of coming in. And there's just this really openness, like this nakedness is really about vulnerability, not hiding behind anything. And so this time that you are much more receptive, or you're much like communicating in a much more loving way, listening and hearing in a much more loving way, there's going to be so much over the next 18 months that really drops in for you. And it's not necessarily that the people that you are being loving towards are telling you things or teaching you things. Like, yes, we all bring lessons to each other, but for me, this is not about people teaching you or giving you information. This is very much about, through the act of love, you are opening yourself to have a higher relationship with your divine power. So God, source, spirit, universe, whatever you call it. As we operate more in love in each situation, it almost creates like this up leveling in how we are able to receive love from our God. And so, or from source, spirit, universe, whatever it is that you believe. So this is very much about receptivity, that in the giving of love to others, in acting out of love to others, it opens us up to receive more from our higher power. The South Node card that I pulled for you is your commitment is being tested. This is first quarter moon. So to me, this kind of feels like maybe I would say like the next 3-4 months, maybe 4 or 5 months. Give yourself some grace if you feel like you're very much clinging to what you know, how knowing makes you feel, really being attached to being like the wise scholar. Because for me, the South Node card says that you're going to have a little bit of a struggle in moving towards that, you know, North Node, that newness, or really kind of struggle with putting things on the shelf that are more Sagittarian. And so this doesn't mean that it's going to be a struggle of a life lesson. It might be that like over the next 3 or 4 months, you're really, really pissed off that you can't travel to Europe like you were planning to do in August for your anniversary or your wedding or whatever. And that's completely fine. Like that is okay. But your commitment to a new way is going to be tested. So you might have said, you know, or decided that, you know, this new way of doing things is going to be great. There's a new way coming and it's going to be really good for us. It's going to be positive. And then it doesn't feel good. Like, why is this happening? What is going on? I'm so frustrated. I'm so pissed off. This is supposed to be good and it doesn't feel good. And what's going on? If you find yourself like in that emotional space, that's totally okay. Totally okay. It doesn't mean that your commitment to, you know, whatever intentions you set for the future are like wrong, bad, whatever. Your commitment's just being tested. And, you know, when I feel like when we get tested by the universe, by God's source spirit, it's really kind of like a confirmation being questioned, you know. So it's like when, this is just very personal to me, like let's say I decided to, I don't know, save $5,000 for a trip. It better be an amazing, just an expensive trip. Okay, that's not realistic for me. Let's say $2,000 for this trip, right? Like just amazing all-inclusive trip overseas. And then the time comes to make the payment. Yes, I saved the money for this trip, but if I'm not all in on this trip, there's going to be a lot of resistance towards paying, because like that, to me, $2,000 is a lot of money. And like, do I believe, is my commitment strong enough that this trip will be worth the value of the $2,000 to me? And so, you know, if I decided that like I want to try new things, I want to go on adventures, is my commitment to that strong enough that the value of the $2,000, paying the $2,000, equals what I will receive from the trip? And my commitment might change. I might say, you know what? Oh, like, I don't know what's going on with the economy, and I would rather just keep that $2,000 just in case something happens to me or my family, or something unexpected happens, or, you know, it doesn't really feel right to go on this really lavish trip right now for me because there's so much uncertainty and like, it doesn't feel good, you know. Or I might be like, yes, I am in, I've been waiting for this, I've been saving for this, I worked so hard, I cannot wait. So with this, you know, South Node card, your commitment is being tested. the testing of the commitment is just asking us to get still and quiet and really reevaluate, which is really like very North Node, looking at the facts, really reevaluate what is for our best, highest good. And to me, this feels like very healing energy, because as we talked about, the North Node is our future karma, South Node is our unresolved karma. And so we're being invited to lean into the North Node for the purposes of healing this unresolved karma. So the tarot card I pulled for your South Node card is the Inner Voice card, which is the High Priestess. And so, you know, in reevaluating that commitment, when that testing comes, just really getting quiet with yourself, just sitting with yourself and asking, you know, listening to that inner voice, like, do I still want to commit to this? Is this worth my time and energy to move forward with it? Yes, I've invested time and energy already, but is the value of this enough for me to continue to move forward? And if it's not, that's okay. We can release those commitments. But the big part is just going within and figuring out, like, you know, how to decide, like, what is for my best good? What do I need to let go of? You know, and this is very much about connecting to that higher power. Like the moon is just a really significant symbol of the High Priestess, you know, of just taking that time to go within. I mean, this is the person, and this is really at their third eye, crown chakra, that, you know, using that intuition, using that kind of soul speak, the soul messages of what is best for us, to decide, you know, if those commitments are what we want to maintain or not anymore. Do we want to move forward or let go? So that was your reading. This was a long one because of the astrology information, because of the North Node, South Node information. I hope it was helpful and insightful to you. I wanted to take advantage of the astrology right now to just kind of do a card reading around that. Because this, you know, North Node, South Node change is going to bring a lot of life lessons for us. And I am really, I used to like not like astrological change stuff, like retrogrades. Oh, I used to hate them. And now I had some big things shift for me that I'm like, I'm just leaning in. If the planets are giving me some downtime to get introspective, for things to slow down, I'm going to take advantage of that, because my mindset is that we either deal with it or we get dealt with, right? Which sounds like really negative and powerless, but what I'm talking about is that, you know, we live in a benevolent universe. And so these lessons that we're being asked to deal with are for us to transition into our highest, best selves. So if we don't want to do the work in the time that we're given to be our best selves, then we'll get the hard lesson, because either way, we're on a path to becoming our best self. It's not a contest. There's no like time limit, but that's what our soul has chosen, like to come here and to become the best version of ourselves. So we can either choose to move with the energy and the opportunities we're given, or we can resist, because that's our free will. But in my experience, being a highly resistant person, you can only resist for so long. And the more that I have resisted, the more painful the lessons have been. I'm not a big fan of pain. I'm just not. You know, which probably sounds weird, because like people look at this and it's like, oh, physical pain. Like, to me, emotional pain is so much worse. And the times that I've really tried to avoid those life lessons and those karmic lessons, the soul lessons, the times of evolution, it's been like really, 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 really not pleasant. And I'm just, I don't like that. So if you are in the same boat and you don't prefer the non-pleasant way of growing and evolving, then, you know, I hope you enjoyed the reading. I hope it was insightful. Yeah. And thank you for being here with me. I hope you have a great week, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.